Councillor Drawn's not online? So we're missing Councillor Bernard. He's not able to make it. Councillor McKinnon, did he indicate he declined? And Councillor Drawn is not here, so we do have quorum. So first order is to call to order. Just want to announce that today is the Purple Day for Epilepsy Awareness, 26th of March, and this morning the CAO and Councillor Bernard, who was up here, we raised the flag with Sarah Ross and some friends, and this evening the city will be lighting its tower in purple as recognition of Purple Day for Epilepsy Awareness Day. I'm going to start off with the land acknowledgement, and in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that the land upon which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Epigwit, Prince Edward Island, Mi'kma'ki is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this island, Prince Edward Island, for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. Approval of the agenda, moved by the Deputy Mayor Yankoff, seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All in favor? Yes. I don't think any declarations of conflict of interest. No. Okay, discussions. We have two items. I have a third page here. Thank you. It's rezoning 231 Brackley Point Road, PID number 623090. Michael Fraser is planner 2. Michael's here. And it's a request to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the City of Charlottetown, zoning development bylaw, from the institutional zone to the business park, M3 zone, to facilitate the future development of commercial condo buildings on this project. 6 is rezoning 68 Queen Street. I see the Bevins' family is in the audience, in the gallery. And it's 68 Queen Street, PID number 336982. Laura Palmer will be presenting on behalf of the Department of Planning, Development, and Heritage. And the request is to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the City of Charlottetown, zoning development bylaw, from the downtown Main Street, which is DMS, zone, to the downtown mixed-use neighborhood, DMUN zone, to facilitate the future development of a 7-story multi-use residential and commercial building on the subject property in the 500-lot area. The proposed future development would also overlap with nearby parcels and identified as parcel numbers 336974, 336966, 336909, 336917, and 1172-915. Lots of properties. The proposed development is also subject to applications for design review, which is another part of the zoning development bylaw process. Design review, variance, and future lot consolidation. And number 7 is site-specific amendment to 147 Hillsboro Street, PID number 342907. David Gundram, who is our manager of planning development, he will be the presenter. And the request is to amend Appendix C, approve site-specific exemptions of the City of Charlottetown zoning development bylaw to allow for a transitional housing facility as an additional permitted use on the subject property that is not otherwise permitted in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood DMUN zone. The proposed transitional housing facility would have a capacity to accommodate 11 individual residents on site. So I will start off by outlining those applications as they did. We do have Andrea Battison. Andrea, are you there?
I am.
Okay,
Microphone
so
unmuted,
if you
sorry.
wish to speak, could you just raise your hand, and then that way Jason can indicate to the chair of the Planning Development and Heritage Standing Committee. So as I said, while we are back to in-person meetings at this time, residents do have the option to participate via Teams, Microsoft Teams, and that is what Andrea is doing. Just want to make sure that if you miss anything, you can go to YouTube and go to City of Charlottetown, or just go to our website, www.charlottetown.ca/video. And there's only, as I said, 3 members of council that are not here. I see David Eschry. He is a member of the planning board. I don't know if there are any other planning board members, David, but glad to see David Eschry here as a member of the planning board. And now I turn it over to the deputy, who is our chair of the Standing Committee for Planning, Development, and Heritage.
Yeah,
Deputy.
thank you, Your Worship. So this evening's procedures process, we've got 3 applications. I assume the applicants are all here. I do see the Bevins are here. I assume they have a presentation. Do I see Mr. Jackson and do I see the province? Are they here? Do we know if we have the other 2 applicants here? David, maybe you know, or Mike? No, odd. Okay, well, so we'll begin with a brief presentation by staff and then the applicant, if they're here. After that, we'll open it up to the folks that are here in the chamber. If anyone has any comments or questions for either the applicant or for staff. And for there, then we'll open it up to anyone that's on Teams, and I believe we just have 1 person. So when it comes to that time for the Teams request, Jason will give an opportunity for anyone on Teams to ask any questions. And then from there, council members will be allowed to ask questions of clarity, and obviously remembering that we're not here to give opinions at this stage of the game. And anyone that chooses not to ask questions this evening but still wants to add some input onto any of these projects are encouraged to do so by tomorrow by noon. And other than that, we just ask everyone to, wait their turn when it's their turn to speak. And when they do get up to speak, you have 5 minutes. And we ask that we respect that time limit. And other than that, I think I can turn it back over to His Worship. And I hope everyone enjoys the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you very much. And just to reiterate, when anyone is speaking, please try to show some respect to anyone that is speaking. And as the Deputy Mayor said, that if you don't get your points of view down now, you can email them to planning@charlottetown.ca, correct? And that's up till tomorrow? Tomorrow, no. And if there's some late, well, we'll deal with them as they come in. So I will start off, Deputy, will we start off with rezoning 231 Brackley Point Road? And it's Michael Fraser? Mr. Fraser.
Hello. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm here to present 231 Brackley Point Road, PID 623090. And this is a rezoning and official plan amendment application. The request is to change the official land use plan, designation from institutional to industrial, and to rezone the subject property from institutional I to business park industrial M3. Oh. Jason, do you mind just pressing next? Thank you. Oh. Okay, perfect. The subject property is currently developed with a place of worship. People may know this as a former Baptist church. I believe it's currently a Sikh temple currently. It is within the official plan's institutional land use designation, as well as the zoning and development bylaws institutional zone currently. This land use and zoning is uncommon for the area. You can see that here, that it's a small parcel of the blue, surrounded by mostly industrial to the north and mostly residential to the south. So the land use is uncommon for the area. The properties to the south are zoned single detached residential R1L. The properties to the west are zoned light industrial M1, and across Brackley Point Road are largely in the airport zone. So that's that A zoning that's showing up as white. The parcels to the north are already within the requested zone, so they're already within the M3 zone, and many are developed with kind of similar to what we would anticipate with M3 development currently. These are the parcels in question. There isn't a detailed proposal at this time. They're seeking rezoning at this point. The parcel is the one to the south, the farthest to the bottom of the page that's outlined in red. This was provided by the applicant. The other red highlighted properties are potential future lot consolidations that, if this was a successful application, would be pursued by the applicant. They are planning to develop cohesively amongst those 4 PIDs. Oh. Zoning bylaw amendment, rezoning, and accompanying official plan amendments are required by section 310.4 of the zoning and development bylaw to proceed to public consultation, and the Planning and Heritage Department must notify the public of future public meeting dates. In accordance with section 310.4 of the zoning and development bylaw, 32 letters were mailed to properties within 100 meters of the subject property, soliciting feedback via letter or at today's and informing them of today's public meeting. As of March 26, 2026, no letters have been received by the department. On-site posting to the property occurred on March 18, 2026, and postings to the Guardian newspaper were published on Saturday, March 14th, and Saturday, March 21st. The request to proceed to public consultation was approved through resolution of council on March 10th, 2026. This application has been submitted to support a future business park industrial development on the site, though it is not yet at a design stage or anything where there's a proposal, a development proposal in front of us. Along with the properties to the north, the other parcels that would be included within that future development are currently intended to include 235 Brackley Point Road, 241 Brackley Point Road, and an unaddressed parcel to the rear of 241 Brackley Point Road. If this application is successful, a lot consolidation application would be required in order to develop these properties cohesively. And that's not currently being sought. That would be a future application. So that's all I have there. I'll send it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the gallery? And the proponent's not here, right? Okay. Any questions from the Andrea? Yep. Andrea, do you have a question?
Not on this one.
Okay.
The other two.
Councilor Ramsey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for that. What are the plans for these properties? Or is that a crazy question to ask right this moment?
It's a worthwhile curiosity. They're not at a design stage yet, so they're not.
So they don't know what they're going to put there.
They're not sure of what it will look like the access points or anything along those lines. They're intending it for to be the development's very consistent with the zone itself, which is usually allowable for retail-looking kind of plazas that support light industrial use. That being said, we don't have any access points or anything along those for that detailed consideration, but the most likely use will be some form of plaza-looking thing that can have industrial and retail type uses. Thank you very much. No worries.
Councilor Twill.
So you haven't seen any conceptual designs, and when you say it's more along the lines of a business plaza, why would they request to go to industrial?
The business park industrial zone M1 or M3 that they're seeking is kind of intended for that. So industrial that you envision in your head, kind of in behind this parcel, which might have things like factories or large warehouses or something, are excluded from the business park industrial zone, the one that they're seeking. So it's a more limited type of industrial zone. And it's usually intended for places that would have kind of drive-up traffic rather than needing like large industrial parcels, those kind of things.
I asked the question because it's a bit confusing. You know, if you're talking industrial, you're thinking industrial. You're not really thinking along the lines of a business park. So maybe that's something we need to clarify with the new zoning and development bylaw. When that comes around and we're looking for additions and deletions. It would have been nice to see a conceptual design of what they're proposing or what they're thinking about. Usually that's the norm, isn't it?
We request it if they have it. It's not a requirement for rezoning applications because rezoning is technically further back in the process than detailed planning. A lot of times they do, like especially here. In my previous experience, they almost never provided a concept rendering at the time of a rezoning application. This is slightly outside of the scope of just this application, but at this point in the process, there's a lot of unknowns, right? They don't know whether or not they'll have the zoning. They don't know whether or not they'll have the lot consolidation. So to proceed to design work, sometimes people will hold off on that. And the rezoning's task technically in the bylaw is just for appropriateness of the zone. So we can proceed without a concept rendering, but it does create a challenge. People don't necessarily know exactly what they're looking at.
So having said that, if it goes back to planning board recommends that council approves it, then are they coming back for the lot consolidation? Is that the objective?
Yeah, unless they were wanting to develop each little parcel, it's like piecemeal, which wouldn't make sense because it would be such setback requirements that it would really limit the land. As long as they're coming in for some form of future development that they're not developing each individual lots totally separately, they'll have to come in for a lot consolidation. That would be a requirement, yeah.
In terms of the lot consolidation, that's not a requirement to go to the public consultation process, is it?
I don't think it has to. There's no public circulation. I believe it has meetings. It would come back to meetings, but there's no, the letter process that we're currently doing right now wouldn't be happening.
Okay.
So, Michael, would there be 39 uses under M3?
I don't have it in front of me.
I'm looking at it here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The M3 uses are, I think the ones that get tailored away from the other industrial uses
Yeah.
are the heavier industrial. So stuff like more factory type
Right.
uses you would
Research and
perceive.
development.
Yeah, so those uses on the use page is what they'd be seeking.
Okay. And as for the consolidation, I think it goes back to when Laurel was a planner in the early years. Consolidation's never required any notification. I think now it requires a notification to be sent out.
I haven't done one in quite a while, so I'll just
that
leave it to Dave.
Okay. Through the chair, your worship, it doesn't require a public meeting, but it does require meetings of planning board and council to approve, yeah. Yeah, so there would be future reporting for the consolidation, at least under the current bylaw.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Thanks.
Okay, just one sec, Deputy. Go ahead, Deputy. Thank you.
Yeah, just to build on what Councillor Tweel was curious about, although Mr. Jackson is not really confirmed yet because he's got many steps in the process left, but if you were to look slightly down the road on Brackley Point Road, where you see Good Guys Auto, and it's like a black, long row of industrial type condo bay doors and stuff.
Yeah.
He's kind of visualizing a very similar type of light industrial that you would see there. So it's very fitting for the area, if that's any help. Now, I mean, that's not going to happen for sure, but that was his long-term vision if he can get through the steps.
Right. But Good Guys won't be there because Good Guys are already down there. They're giving out the notepads. Yeah, those notepads. Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. That's good to move on? Okay. Okay, we got is Mr. Hagus here, Quentin? Mr. Hagus, yes. Do you want to bring him up too? Bring him up to the witness, bring him up to the I know. David present first, yeah. Okay, David? Laurel. We'll get Laurel presented. Can you send out a? Okay. Defense and prosecution on both sides.
Just when I start Laurel, I can't get you in, so I gotta either wait for an order for a second or something.
Okay, good. We're just getting some technical issues cleared up here. Councilor McAleer. Good? Okay. Laurel, you're on. Laurel Palmer.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, ladies and gentlemen of the public. This is a request to rezone PID numbers 336-974, 336-909, 336-917, 336-966, and 1172915, which is land located along King and Dorchester Streets and has land area totaling approximately 1,408 square meters. So the lots in question to be rezoned are shown here in green. The request is to rezone from downtown mixed-use neighborhood, DMUN, to downtown Main Street, DMS zone. Amend Appendix A, the official plan map for the subject properties from downtown mixed-use neighborhood, DMUN, to downtown Main Street, DMS. And my presentation says zone, but that should just be the land use designations.
Yep.
So the purpose of the request, we're not moving ahead here, Jason? Oh, whoops. So, the purpose of the request is to facilitate the construction of a proposed 7-story mixed-use commercial and multi-unit residential building on the subject property, with parking contained on the first and second floors. The application also involves a request for variances, a lot consolidation, bonus height, and cash in lieu of parking. And the area in question is bounded in red. So the subject properties are located within the downtown 500 lot area and are a group of lots bounded by Queen, Dorchester, and King Streets. The property also shares an interior lot line with the Bishop's Palace. PID number 336982 is located on Queen Street within the downtown Main Street zone. And that is this property right here. The remaining properties are located within the downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone. Buildings within this area are mixed use, and they range from commercial office buildings, single detached dwellings, institutional, multi-unit apartment buildings, and commercial retail. So the zoning and development bylaw stipulates regulations for amending the bylaw, and Section 3.10.3, before amending the regulations of this bylaw or rezoning any parcel of land, council shall conduct a public meeting to receive the views and opinions of the public and the applicant, and council does have the choice to advance it to a public meeting or not. The request to proceed to public consultation was approved by resolution of council on March 10th, 2026. So, in accordance with Section 3.10 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, on March 18th, notice of the public meeting was circulated to 120 surrounding property owners within 100 meters of the subject property. The letter advised them of the public meeting that's being held tonight and to request any comments and feedback concerning the proposed rezoning request and official plan amendment for the property identified as 68 Queen Street. To date, 11 responses have been received in support of the request. On-site posting of the property occurred on March 18th, 2026, and postings to the Guardian newspaper were published on Saturday, March 14th and Saturday, March 21st. This project also underwent the design review process, and for that process, the proponents submitted a design package which contained facade drawings, elevation drawings, proposed site plan for the development. And when that was sent to the design reviewer, it did receive positive comments, and for the most part, it was supported. The reviewer did raise comments regarding the proposed step-back variance request for the 5th, 6th, and 7th stories on King and Dorchester, on the King and Dorchester side of the building. However, the design review board was not in agreement with the design reviewer's comment in relation to the step-back variance requests. They agreed with all other recommendations made by the design reviewer. So on March 2nd, council approved the design submission, and the applicant will be required to enter into a development agreement with council for the proposed design if this application receives rezoning approval and the variances are approved. So there are a number of variances, and this is a summary of them. There's a height variance to 7 stories. If bonus height cannot be justified, it requires a 40.4-foot variance, 15 meters to 25.5 meters. There's a step back above the 4th and below the 7th floor on King and Dorchester Streets. The bylaw requires a 3-meter step back. A 2-meter step back is proposed. Therefore, a 1-meter variance is required for both sides. There's a step back above the 7th floor on King and Dorchester Streets. The bylaw requires a minimum of 6 meters for a step back. A 2-meter step back is proposed. Therefore, a 4-meter variance is required on both sides. There's a step back above the 4th floor interior lot line, which is the east side of the building facing the Bishop's Palace. It requires a minimum of 10 meters for an interior yard setback. A 2-meter step back is proposed. Therefore, it requires an 8-meter variance. Frontage or lot width requirement for bonus height on Queen Street. Proposed lot frontage is 13 meters. The bylaw requires 41, and a minimum lot depth of 36 meters for buildings taller than 21.3 meters. Therefore, a 28-meter variance is required for frontage. There's an increase to the allowable floor plate from 750 meters squared to 1,096 meters squared. Therefore, a variance of 346 meters squared is required to the floor plate. There are additional requests. There will be a variance. In addition to the variance, there's also a request for cash in lieu of parking for approximately 6 parking spaces. A lot consolidation for PID numbers 336982, 336974, 336909, 336917, 336966, and 1172915. They will be required to assemble the land to form one property to construct the building. Approval of bonus height and public benefit under Section 31.3, which is bonus height development standards in the zoning and development bylaw, is also required. The applicant has indicated in their submission that the public benefit that they intend to provide in exchange for bonus height will be a new activated alley throughway that will provide space for public art murals, seasonal food vendors, and possible access to all commercial properties fronting on Queen Street. The public benefit portion of the bonus height application will be deferred to Planning Committee for a recommendation once the rezoning application is approved. If it is approved, I should say. So just to wrap up, the next steps following tonight's meeting will be staff will collect all the input from the public from this meeting and any written responses that we have received, and we will formulate a report, and the application will then be forwarded back to Planning Board on April 7th and then on to Council on April 14th, tentatively, if everything goes well. So The architect for the project is here, Robert Haggis, and also Quentin Bevan, who is the owner of the property. And they're available for any questions, and I also believe that Robert has a quick presentation for members of council, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to them at this time. Thank you.
And so,
I'm also available for any questions once their presentation is complete. Thank you.
and so is the president. The president of the company is here, Hal Bevan. Go ahead, Robert.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Robert Haggis. I'm the architect of record for this project from Sable Arc. Just wait a second for the presentation here. No. It's going up or down? Yep. So I'm just gonna flip back to the beginning. We're back to Laurel's presentation there.
Okay. Almost. Coming around the corner. Going through the alley. Okay.
That's Laurel's. The next one?
No, he wants to present his.
I thought you said go back.
No.
Oh, no, please, our presentation. Yes, please.
No, we saw Laurel's. Very, very well done, Laurel.
You gotta record it. Yeah.
That's all right.
Hang tight.
Mr. Haggis might be a little nervous.
Not at all.
So,
Okay, try that.
go ahead there, sir.
There we go. Thank you very much. Let me just hit a button here. Okay. As described by Laurel and presented, there's a 7-story structure, mixed use. There's a 3,000 square foot commercial space fronting onto Queen, presented there in orange. In blue, 2 stories of residential. There's an additional story at the 5th in residential, and the top in the dark orange there is a commercial. So the most important thing to kind of pick up on is the overall form with that bottom diagram. We deliberately kept the portion fronting onto Queen to be very similar in height to the adjacent structures to preserve that streetscape and scale. As you go, fall to the back, to the north, to the east side, that's where we rise up to the 7-story structure. You can see in the yellow, it represents in that diagram the 2-meter step back off of Dorchester, King, and also fronting onto SDU's property. The green represents rooftop decks, and the green arrow is representation of the activated alleyway between the buildings. I'll just quickly walk through the floor plans. The first level is garage space, housing 20 parking stalls. In pink, it represents the commercial space onto Queen. Second level parking, which accesses off of Dorchester. 3 levels of residential. And finally, the top 2 floors in commercial. The elevation here gives you a general idea of what to expect. You can see the brick portion on the left of our lot there that is specifically dropped down to address the adjacent properties. We also made sure that the height of the building didn't compromise the views to the basilica, and kept it below the ridge height of the primary roof. This elevation from the northwest, it shows an entrance to the commercial space on the top 2 floors. And here is from the southeast off of King with the entrance for the residential portion. Finally, elevation facing SDU. In terms of materiality, we use a fair amount of brick. It's a very indigenous project for downtown Charlottetown, and ties in very well with the streetscape. The gray and light gray is a metal product of variation in and out. It has a faux wood veneer. And finally, at the top story, we went with the curtain wall predominantly. The reason for the materials is to help ground it with the brick, and as you rise up to the 7th floor, make it lighter as you approach the sky. This is a good representation of what it would look like driving down Queen towards the water. As you can see, although a 7-story structure to the back, it's kind of out of view. Directly across the street from the sidewalk, you can see there. Corner of Dorchester and Queen, commercial entry at the corner. And this image is, sorry, I'd like to go back, but that's right. Yeah. Those 2 images were just showing representation of what it would look like in different, when the sun hits those different veneers. It's very animated and helps to create a different aesthetic of those upper floors. Again, a perspective for Queen and King. This would be looking down Dorchester towards Queen Street. And finally, on King towards Queen from the SDU side. Couple night perspectives. Concept for the activated alleyway. The idea is that would be a place to display public art, possible food vendors, and again, as Laurel stated, access to the commercial entities fronting onto Queen. We thought it was a good idea, not just as a public amenity, but also to help with security. You can get from Dorchester all the way to King. There you can see the residential entry. This is from Dorchester looking back towards King. And finally, the commercial entrance. In terms of the rear, we thought as a good way to break down the brick with this green wall structure. And that is it.
Okay. So we will open it up. Do you want to go with, does she have her hand up? Okay, you want to go there, Deputy? Yes. Yes, okay. Yes, thank you. So we'll open it up for the public. Yes, come right up there, Mr. Dunn.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Dunn, and I'm one of the 11 letters, I guess, that got written and submitted to Ms. Palmer on this project. I'll be very brief. I just want to reiterate some highlights from my letter. I'm writing to express my very strong support for the proposed development at 68 Queen Street. As a downtown property owner associated with properties on Sydney Street, many of you would know the Gahan House. I'm an owner in that property with Kevin Murphy, as well as 4957 Water Street, 137 Queen Street, 133 Queen Street. Over the last 20 years, I've seen how the downtown Charlottetown area has developed, and this project would be a very positive investment for the capital city. This proposed mixed-use development is exactly the type of project that supports a vibrant and economically resilient downtown. I am particularly impressed with the architectural approach. Kudos to the architect and the team. The design thoughtfully integrates modern elements while respecting the existing streetscape, and the scale is appropriate for a downtown Main Street environment. Projects like this require vision and a willingness to invest in the future of our city. From an economic development and an urban planning perspective, I believe this project will be a strong asset, not only to the immediate neighborhood where we are, but to Charlottetown and PEI as a whole. I respectfully encourage council to support the requested rezoning to allow this project to go ahead. And I think I'll just add to that, being down in this downtown area, and I know many of the council would know as well, this is a very difficult project to get off the ground. It's major in size, in scale, and complexity. We're in an environment right now of very expensive construction, and I think we're very fortunate to have a developer who wants to do this project, has the capability to do this project, and is willing to risk and get behind it. I know it's been going on for years, plural.
Yep.
And I'll conclude by saying thank you to Hal, Bevan, and Quentin for pushing this forward. Thank you.
I second that there, Mr. Dunn. That's well done. We'll stay to the public here. Anyone else? Yep. Yay or nay? Do you wish to say anything there, Quentin? You're all right to? Good. Hal? No words? Okay. Do we go to teams? Okay. Teams? Oh, just, can you come up to the mic, sir? Just give us your name and if you're from Charlottetown or?
Yeah, my name is Charles. I'm the representative of Wilson Joe, my friend. He's the owner of just near the project. So he just wanted me to support this project. Yeah. One second.
Sir?
I think he's the owner of 83 Water Street. So he just wanted to say that he believes the proposal will contribute positively to the area and support this responsible growth and development in downtown Charlottetown. Thank you.
And sir, just again, your name, please?
My name is Charles, and his name is Wilson Joe.
Okay, we got that.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go to teams. Okay. Did you? Another one? Oh, thank you, sir.
Reg McCarville,
Reg.
and I live in Charlottetown. I'm here representing St. Dunstan's Parish, and so I just wanted to, in those drawings or those things we saw on the screen, it looked like the steeples of St. Dunstan's were well above this. So is that true? It looked like, kind of distorted, it looked like the steeples were much, much higher above the 7 stories than it seems it would be.
That's all modeled to scale, so the top,
to scale?
correct, so the top of it would be less than the height of the ridge of the church.
Yeah, Robert.
It is to
What are the
scale.
steeples? What's the height of this, 150 feet or more than that?
It's pushing that, and we're at 84 with the height.
It's,
So is there a reason why that is not to scale?
Apologies, that is to scale.
yes, yes, yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll go to teams. Are you there, Andrea?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Can you just turn up your volume,
Okay.
or is it us?
Is that better?
Much better, loud and clear.
There you go.
Andrea, just give your name, please, and I know you're from Charlottetown.
Andrea Battison, Charlottetown. Just thanking council for the opportunity to comment on the project. I see some pros and cons. Support activation and opening up the alleyway, as that's a sort of a goal of our new official plan, and I hope to see more of these incorporated into downtown developments going forward. Spaces for open culture and unique commercial environments. I think it could help with a more celebrated entrance from Dorchester to sort of bring people in. The treatment of the corner facade on Queen and Dorchester is consistent with the 500 lot development standards and guidelines. That'll contribute to the streetscape. Do have several concerns, however. I would support the recommendations from the external design reviewer, which were supported by planning staff and submitted to design review board for approval, which regarded decreasing the massing and incorporating step backs for that 7th level. Quite concerned that these concerns and requested changes were dismissed and disregarded by design review board and council. Changing the zoning to allow for extra height goes against the previous and the just approved new official plan regarding land use and massing, which we spent years working on. The 7-story building is more appropriate on Queen Street, so it looks like we're already changing the new official plan, re-land use and massing. The rationale for the setback at 7 stories is clearly required no matter what zone a building is in, and it's clearly explained in the 500 lots development standards and guidelines. And every exemption this council makes just sets a precedent for the next project. The parking structure presents 2 problems. In the 500 lots, parking structure facade should be concealed and provide retail, public, or other active uses, as well as pedestrian amenities. That's section 7.11.3. This structure does not appear to do so. I didn't notice a variance for that. The parking structure also has 2 very concealed, hidden, and what I think dangerous entries and exits on King and Dorchester. I live close to one myself and experience this as a problem. These streets get very busy in the summer with distracted tourists. Is this an accident waiting to happen? I think the spires of St. Dunstan's, depending on your perspective and sightline, will be obscured. And in future, maybe council will want to consider adding the spires to a list of protected view planes. Although overall, when you look at the building, the main reason driving all of these variants and the official plan amendments is because there are 2 levels of above ground parking. Without that, you'd have a 5-story building with the bonus height for the laneway as a public benefit, all within what is allowed for the downtown mixed-use zone with bonus height. It would be really encouraging to see more creative solutions to these parking problem. Where else can this parking be accommodated? Are there nearby lots or parkades, current or planned? Better public transit. I'd ask now if the city has ever considered thinking outside the box and going to a stratified parking agreement where the project is allowed to go under the street as in other cities. Queen is 100 feet wide and it's an underused public property. In this case, I suspect you would be able to get a lot of parking underground and also work in providing easier access to some utilities that are planned to be buried. It might also remove at least one of those dangerous entry exits for the parking and allow for more creative and safer access to parking. The street facade could then be used for commercial units and an animated streetscape rather than simply car storage. It might seem like this is a big ask at first, but really, the city seems to be driving towards more housing density in downtown, and proposals like these with 2 or more parking levels will become the norm, and every variance granted sets a precedent for the next request. Blank parkade walls kill the pedestrian realm and the streetscape. Each exemption granted degrades the fabric, character, and official plan vision for the 500 lots, and that's sort of slowly eating away and destroying that economically significant tourism industry for the city and province. So, as a project, there are certainly benefits, but the parking problem is driving it up and requiring all these changes. And I really think if someone could just sit down and figure out other options. So I'd like to know if we also need a variance for the parking structures, 7-Eleven, if encroachment agreements are needed. And there was this, I'll leave that. Thank you.
Robert? Mr. Haggis, did you want to address any of those concerns or Mr.
Sure, I'll say
Clinton?
something,
Go ahead.
Your Worship. I won't speak to any of the bylaw or variance stuff that Andrea brought up because I'll leave that to to the planning department and Robert. I would say we thank you to Andrea for her comments here tonight, but also in this process, the renderings that you see, there are two significant changes that were made because of Andrea's comments to myself and our architect, particularly to the laneway. Originally, that was a dead end. It was still activated, but it was a dead end. And she came up with several ideas. We couldn't go with all of them, just architecturally, but she did have some as well. A couple of really good ideas on the corner of Dorchester and Queen. I won't comment on the other ones. There's a couple on the parkade. I wouldn't call it a parkade, but the parking, exiting, that Andrew and I spoke to last week or the week before, just in terms of safety that we're willing to look at for sure. On the other items, I'm not a planner or an architect, so I would let the department or Robert talk to those. Thanks.
Mr. Haggis? Robert, do you have any comments?
Is there any way we can bring up some of the images as we talk to this?
Look back to Jason there. Jason.
As Quentin mentioned, a lot of these were brought to our attention.
Sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I'm not seeing what's being projected for the
Not yet.
audience
There's
there
nothing
on my
right now.
screen.
It's
I
not up
haven't
yet.
seen I haven't seen any of the presentation for this on my Teams screen.
Are you able to make that? So, Michael or David,
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
every variance, is it not treated on its own merits? I don't think one variance sets a precedent for other variants, does it? Could that be addressed, please, just for the public knowledge? As an exception is an exception. I don't think an exception sets a precedent for other exceptions, at least not in the French language.
Through the chair, your worship.
Okay, can we just ask the chair if she wants to do it? Go ahead, Chair. Oh,
Yeah, I can speak to that, and then we can turn it over to David, but I know that the planning staff, they take their credentials very serious, and every time a variance or a site-specific exemption or a change to our official plan comes through, each application is treated on its own merit. So it's not a precedent-setting thing. So, and that's the way it's always been with the planning department, and I don't see it changing. So, so we can be assured that our great planning staff look at each application on its own merit.
yep.
And through your worship, just to echo what the deputy said, we don't use a common law approach, so we don't look at precedents,
No.
and neither does IRAC for that matter, if a case ever went to appeal, so.
Yeah, no, common law is for the courtroom, yeah.
Exactly.
What we're talking about is planning, which is,
Yeah.
an exception is an exception.
It's treated differently, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Haggis, you got some images that you want to,
Well, just to speak to some of Andrea's comments, and she did mention these before, and we did our very best to incorporate as many as possible. She had some great ideas, including the concept of the alleyway running from Dorchester to King. We're fully supportive of that, and it's made it even better project. Similarly, just emphasizing the corners you see here and elevating the brick. That was another concept she put forward to us, which we thought strengthened the overall look of the building. In terms of the step backs, and I'll leave this image up, go to the next even, the requirement is a 3-meter step back at the 4th floor. We're presently showing 2. In reality, if we were to pull that back an additional meter, I don't think you would really see the difference in perspective. I understand the concept of it, and from the very start, we started with the bylaws. We did our very best to work within every one of them. But for a variety of different reasons, we're unable to, especially with some of those step backs, to make a viable project. In terms of the parkade, or the parking lot, or underground parking, the garage doors were set flush with the brick. One of Andrea's ideas, which we shared back and forth, was recessing them so they weren't clear in view. In terms of safety, we could easily provide cameras and TV screens on the inside to help with any potential accidents. On the rear, facing SDU, it's an indoor parking space adjacent to a parking lot. We did our best, and there's other things we could do to animate that facade with the screen wall. And again, Andrea put forward that in her comments just a second ago and shared that with us prior. I really have nothing more to add to that, yeah.
So, Robert, when they built Pally's Wharf at the end of Haviland, the purpose of putting the parking on ground and on grade level was to act as a flood chamber. And I think that's a practice that's used elsewhere. So underground parking, if it's underground parking, that floods and then it floods everything above it. So
that wasn't really the primary reason for it. We're pretty well outside that floodplain where we are here, so.
Okay.
And I guess whether good or bad, there have been a number of developments downtown that have not provided the parking required or any parking for that matter. This development, we have about 86% of the parking requirements within the building, only requiring 6 out of 46 parking stalls for cash in lieu.
Councillor Peck?
Yeah, Robert, just on so the residential is off King, commercial access is off Dorchester?
That's correct, yes.
And they're both in and out? Like, you can't exit, the residential can't exit on the commercial side.
That's correct. So
On
each,
Dorchester, they have to do all their in and out on King Street?
so
And
each,
same for commercial?
yeah, so each entrance has its own elevator to service the floors. So this here shows the commercial entrance as an elevator to bring you to the 6th and 7th floor. Off of Dorchester, you have the residential entrance, its own elevator to service the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't get,
No,
residential can't get to the other side?
that's correct. That's correct, yes.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, the alley, Quentin remembers the alley when it went to public tender. We did have a public meeting, and I think Andrea and Barbara Dalla, made their comments about what they'd like to see in that alley. I think it's reflected. Well done. Any other comments from our gallery? Councillor Twill? Okay, sir, just 1 second.
Yes, I want to welcome the Bevan family here and their architect, as well as Reg McCarville representing the St. Dunstan's Basilica, the historic St. Dunstan's Basilica. This is a great exercise here tonight. We're exchanging different perspectives. But I want to go back to what Steve Dunn said. You know, this is a monumental project. These are challenging times. The cost of building supplies and labor. We're living in unprecedented times, and for Mr. Bevan to come here tonight and present a project of this magnitude is truly remarkable. We're very fortunate to have this significant major investment in downtown Charlottetown. We really are. This is a major shot in the arm for downtown Charlottetown. Make no mistake about it. Business, residential, I mean, that's what we've been talking about here for the last number of years. And if you look at what Steve Dunn and his business partner did on Water Street, again, these are great developments, great for the downtown. So, you know, we're very fortunate to have this type of an investment. So I'd like to see, you know, the different challenges come together, and then good discussion at planning board, and then a recommendation to city council here in the not too distant future. But I want to thank the Bevans family for this this great opportunity for downtown Charlottetown, and This is going to be around for a long, long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Twill. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So, Madam Chair, what's the next? This goes back to the planning board and then back to council for approval of the variance? Can we just get a thumbnail
Yes,
sketch
so
of what's going on?
So folks have until tomorrow at noon to send along their congratulations, their other comments, whatever it is they want to send along. And then this returns to planning board after planning staff evaluate it, and they'll send to planning board a recommendation. And then that recommendation will move on for council's final decision. And we should see that at our monthly meeting of council in April.
That's fast moving. Yes.
Okay.
I want to thank the staff too. Laurel, thank you guys. Well done and good cooperation, collaboration between the developer and our staff. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next one, Madam Chair. Thank you. And I think we have the government officials here, Jason Doyle and his team. Jason, it's going to be introduced by David Gundrum. And then if you want to take seats over here. Ashley, are you coming up to the front too? Do you want to? You sure? Okay. David, do you wish to start?
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of council, members of the public in attendance this evening. The last application for tonight's public meeting is application for site-specific zoning amendment request at 147 Hillsboro Street, PID 342907. The request, again, is for a site-specific amendment to the existing downtown mixed-use neighborhood DMUN zoning to permit development of a transitional housing facility within an existing three-story building. The transitional housing facility is proposed to have accommodation for 11 individuals on site, so 11 beds. The interior of the existing structure would be renovated under a future building permit to accommodate the new proposed occupancy should the site-specific amendment be approved. And it's noted that the application has been made by Prince Edward Island Housing Corporation. Location of the subject property is shown on the screen on the air photo as shown. The existing lot, again, is developed with a three-story residential structure and is currently within the DMUN zone. The property is a corner lot bounded to the east by Hillsboro Street and to the south by Clark Street. The requested site-specific amendment to the existing DMUN zoning is intended to facilitate renovation, redevelopment of the interior of the existing three-story structure to be a transitional housing facility, having 11 beds as well as supervisory staff. It's noted that a transitional housing facility is not a permitted land use within the existing DMUN zone that applies to the subject property. As per section 3.10.3 of the zoning and development bylaw, before amending the regulations of the bylaw or rezoning any parcel of land, council shall conduct a public meeting to receive the views and opinions of the public and the applicant. Council may, for reasons that are in the best interest of the city, reject a proposed amendment to the bylaw without public notice and without referral to a public meeting. The request to proceed to public consultation was approved through resolution of council on March the 10th, 2026. Just further to our legislative requirements, in accordance with section 3.10, amendments to the bylaw and rezonings of the zoning and development bylaw, on March 18th, 2026, notice of the public meeting was circulated to 67 surrounding property owners within 100 meters, 328 feet of the subject property, advising them of the public meeting this evening on March 26, 2026. and to request any comments and feedback concerning the proposed site-specific amendment to zoning for the property identified as 147 Hillsboro Street, PID 342907. As of tonight, one response to circulation was received in opposition to the requested site-specific amendment, and that letter was circulated to council ahead of the meeting tonight. On-site posting to the property occurred on March 18th, 2026, and postings to the Guardian newspaper were published on Saturday, March 14th, and Saturday, March 21st, respectively. So following tonight's meeting, the next tentative steps in the process would be to bring a recommendation forward to Planning Board on April the 7th, followed by a council resolution at regular meeting of council on Tuesday, April the 14th. So that is a summary of the application and the request. I understand that the applicants from PEI Housing Corp are in attendance tonight, and I'll turn it back over to the chair for further discussion. Thank you.
That would be great. Sorry about that.
Thank you. We don't actually have a formal presentation, just here to answer any questions that may have or came up from the
Okay.
planning department's presentation.
Okay, very good. Then we can open it up for questions and to the gallery. If there's anyone that has any questions or comments, you come right up to the mic. Just state where your name and if you're from Charlottetown.
Just bring that mic down there, please, so we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Just your name and Charlottetown.
My name is Sharon Dalrymple, Charlottetown, and I'm here to present our concerns re the rezoning of this property at 147 Hillsboro Street for transitional housing. I and my husband Doug own and have lived year-round since 1981 at 218 Kent Street, a designated heritage property. In 1982, I opened the Duchess of Kent Inn, a 4-star bed and breakfast, and have operated it for the past 43 years. 2026 is my 44th year in business. Our property consists of 2 parcels, from 218 Kent Street through the block to 27 Clark Street. My bed and breakfast guests parking, off-street parking, is located at 27 Clark Street, which is less than 30 feet away from the back of the building at 147 Hillsboro Street. My major concerns re this rezoning proposal are: A, the personal safety and security of my guests and their vehicles, as well as that of our own property, plus additional mental stress, mine. B, my guests' possibly negative perception of the increased presence of people outside along Clark Street, my guests' parking area, and along Hillsboro Street. This increase possibly due to no outdoor living space provided at 147 Hillsboro Street, only at present 1 car parking spot. Ours is an eclectic neighborhood, a mix of nightclubs, restaurants and cafes, small businesses, some with apartments above, Talbot House, apartment buildings, my Duchess of Kent business, B&B, a privately owned and operated care facility, a very active Central Christian Church with its various social programs, Stearns Laundry, co-op housing project, private homes and apartments around King Square. Our neighborhood reclaimed our park, King Square, after the outreach center on Houston Street was relocated to Park Street. Now it is again a safe place to walk through, sit on a bench, have a picnic, watch the kids playing. If this rezoning proposal is passed, it may lead to renewed concerns re the safe use of our square. We, Doug and I, recently supported, after a few tweaks addressed some of our concerns, the new apartment complex proposal for the polyclinic parking lot, again next to our backyard. We understand and can accept most changes in our neighborhood, but not this time. I don't feel it's fair that my current livelihood / my tourism business be in jeopardy after 43 years of hard work, nor should our property be subjected to a decrease in value if this rezoning is approved. Thanks to social media, any negative comments from my guests due to the new use of the proposed property at 147 Hillsboro Street have the power to possibly destroy a thriving business, mine, almost overnight. Therefore, myself and Doug are strongly opposed to this rezoning proposal at 147 Hillsboro Street. I'll be delivering my written submission to the planning department tomorrow. Please read it carefully, hear my concerns, and say no to this proposal. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, no, I'm gonna ask, yeah. Jason and team, do you want to provide some clarity?
Sure. I think, firstly, absolutely recognize the concerns and appreciate the concerns. As this being a government project, we're absolutely, our plan would be to work very closely with residents and the community members, ensuring that safety of all is a primary concern and a primary goal of ours and objective. The facility itself would be staffed by is proposed to be staffed by a nonprofit organization. So our plan would be to, if we are able to get this site-specific amendment completed, we would be going out to a request for proposal process to find a qualified nonprofit organization to operate this transitional housing facility, in which there would be staff there 24 hours a day. We have discussed the idea of security being on site as well. At this point, we haven't made any confirmations of that at this point, as we're still in the process, obviously, of determining whether or not we can proceed with this project. We would plan the infrastructure to have camera systems on the exterior as well to hopefully alleviate any concerns on the outside. So those are some of the factors and some of the plans to try to make sure that we have a safe and suitable location. Obviously, the goal here is to try to find more suitable housing for individuals that are facing homelessness. So that's the ultimate goal here, and we would certainly be working with the community and the community members to try to make sure that everyone feels safe in the community and is acceptable of the project.
Okay, we got some, I'll start with the deputy and just go right down the line. Deputy, do you want to go first? And I'll just...
Thank you. Thank you, Jason, for that clarification. When I went by the property, I'm just wondering, it doesn't really look like there's any green space. And unless I'm mistaken, I'm just thinking of the folks that maybe will be there, what the plan would be for that congregation of green space, unless I'm mistaken. But is there any green space in the back?
Yeah, King Square.
No, I'm talking about the property itself.
Never had any green space.
There's no green
It was
space
all,
at-
it was all, I grew up in the area. It
Yeah,
was-
so there's no backyard or anything?
No, it
So
was
it's
just,
a-
it was
It's
just
just a
a...
property and,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
You want me to go? Okay.
Thank you, Jason. And Jason, just some questions regarding, it's for transitional housing for those individuals who are facing homelessness. What is the criteria that would define the people who might be eligible to take advantage of this situation now? Again, we have people who are experiencing homelessness who do not have addictions, and we have those who have severe addictions who are also experiencing homelessness. So I guess I'm trying to understand a little bit more about the type of criteria. I mean, it talks about in your letter, and I think it's important to note here, and maybe you could speak to it a little bit more for the public record, that it talks about there will be no illegal substances permitted on site, staff on site 24 hours a day, which you just alluded to. But it's one thing to not have illegal substances on site, but if it's also housing people with severe addictions to multiple things, that raises some concern level to those who are possibly in recovery or those who are experiencing homelessness for reasons out of their control, loss of job, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of wondering what the criteria around that is. I know we tend to think homelessness is automatically associated to addictions, and I'm not sure that's a fair statement. So what would that look like in this scenario?
Jason?
Yeah, thank you. I think, first of all, I guess in terms of being selected to reside at the property at 147 Hillsboro Street, our plan, there's a coordinated access system that our team and other nonprofit organizations sits on, and individuals that are facing homelessness, that are connected to case managers throughout that nonprofit community, they are all part of this coordinated access system. So when a bed would come available, the individuals would be reviewed through all of our case conferencing tables through our nonprofit groups. And if it's deemed that the individual on the list would be a good fit in terms of housing, then they would be selected. I guess to your point, people could have a bunch of different challenges. They're not necessarily going to be all the same issues. Some may certainly have addiction issues in recovery, but that might not be the case for all. I'll pass it on to Ashley here, just to give a little bit of idea of what the model may look like for clients that would be within the facility. Ultimately, they would be required to enter into a participation agreement where they would be required to take advantage of case management services and different services that nonprofit group that's operating the facility would be able to coordinate, with the ultimate goal of trying to find different pathways for these individuals to get the help that they need. But with more specific information, I'll pass it on to Ashley to talk about the model.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, Ashley?
No, Jason, you did a good job in terms of the participation agreement and stuff. The big, I guess, difference is it doesn't have a housing first model. It will be low barrier. However, you have to be engaged. Engagement is one of the key criteria to being able to be housed. So engagement with case managers to be able, like Jason said, to choose different pathways to move forward into more independent and gain those life skills. So that programming will be on site. To try and give these individuals the opportunity to move forward and choose different pathways than they had before.
Okay. Councillor Peck?
Yeah, just on that last note, so the programming, it will not only be a residence, but it will also house the on-site staff will be operating. Is the on-site staff to manage the housing piece, and then we would have maybe the not-for-profit or maybe external partners? So is there programming that's going to be offered in there for those who are living in the building?
Yes, so the nonprofit kind of a dual role. They are there to manage the housing units, but also to provide that case management support for the tenants within the facility. But it's not just them. It would be a wide range of different services that they would be trying to connect these individuals to, from mental health and addictions, lens, all those different components that really trying to find the right pathway for the client as to kind of see what they need and allow them to move forward with their lives.
Okay, just one more question, if you don't mind. So, going back to the not-for-profit groups, how many organizations can provide what you're looking for here? Like, are we talking about? Is there many groups that are available to do that? I know you're going to be sending out an RFP here shortly. Are we talking? What's the talent pool, I guess, for lack of a better word, available to help provide the programming that you guys are looking in order to make this a successful venture?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a lot of high-quality nonprofit organizations out there that are doing work in this space. In terms of this facility and who may be interested, I would expect that there'd be a handful of nonprofits that would be interested in taking on this project. I don't think we're going to get proposals from 10, but we might get proposals from 5. Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Ramsey?
I also had questions.
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm just going to Councilor Ramsey, and then we'll go to you, Andrea.
Thank you for this, folks. And this is one question that keeps popping on people's residents and in everybody's head. Why this area? Why in Charlottetown? We basically know some of the answers, that they got to be close to downtown. I don't know why, nobody ever sold me on that through all the years of going on with this, but why this area? Is there no other area, like outside the city, or does it have to be downtown? And those are the answers that, those are the questions that's asked me. Why does it have to be downtown?
Good question.
Yeah, fair enough. I think your point is accurate, being close and connected to the different services, which are primarily in the downtown area. We felt that this property was a good fit for a renovation project for transitional housing. And to be honest, this is a property that we have, and we have our hands on it, and it would be, in our minds, a good opportunity to take advantage and renovate this to suit the needs of individuals that would be willing or able to take the next step and pursue transitional housing. It is transitional, so the idea would be that there would be a period of time that individuals would reside, and then they would move on into hopefully more independent housing. Like we're looking at between the 12 and 18-month period. But yeah, I guess hopefully that answers your question, but ultimately the answer would be that, it is closer to services that these individuals need to be successful.
Okay, Andrea, do you have a question? Comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I just kind of got out of order there. So again, thanks to Andrea Battison, Charlottetown. So I guess my understanding for transitional housing, it's only allowed in the institutional zone. So rather than rezoning, you're doing a site-specific amendment. I guess I appreciate the need for transitional housing. However, I'm against the current proposal for a couple of reasons. Few, actually. As far as I know, this is going to remove 6 self-contained, possibly reasonably rent permanent homes from the housing market. How many people were or are living in these units? Will they be able to find housing elsewhere? This proposal is going to create 11 bedrooms with, it looks like, shared bathroom and maybe a shared kitchen facility. So are we really looking at a net gain of housing? How many tenants have had to leave this building to bring in 11? creating additional transitional housing in new builds or converting a previous non-residential property or a building to housing would seem to make more sense and add to the total number of housing units available versus just switching them around. And I've noticed a trend by PEI Housing Corp to run transitional housing in the 500 lot area without getting the zoning amended, as far as I'm aware. Smith Lodge Care Home was purchased, and the residents there had to leave as it's now being used for transitional housing. With, I think some people moved down from McGill Avenue. It's now New Routes, and as far as I know, no one's changed the zoning there. The new building at 3537 Weymouth, part of New Routes, was presented as transitional housing, small apartments, and office space. Neither use is allowed in downtown neighborhood, and I know it's been built. I'm not sure if it's been operational, but no zoning change or site-specific amendment. Possibly one as well on Richmond Street near Prince. So anymore, I don't know. I guess my question, are we going to be expecting more requests from PEI Housing Corp for spot rezoning for these facilities in the 500 lots and other areas? So I'd appreciate some comments from planning staff, council, or the Housing Corporation as to how these types of transitional housing units are going to be handled in the new zoning and development bylaw, if that's at all possible. Is this going to be the way forward of approaching this problem by spot rezoning? And is this an exception that's just being fit in before the new zoning and development bylaw is in place? So I would appreciate any answers that could be provided to those questions, especially the number of people that might have had to leave that building. Thank you.
And Deputy, I know that you want to speak to this, but if I look at number 7, it's to allow for transitional housing facility as an additional permitted use in the subject property area that is not otherwise permitted in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood, DMUN. So could you elaborate on that, or did you want to?
Yeah, so, I mean, Andrea's not wrong. The applicant is asking for basically a spot zone. They're asking for a change of the rules for that specific property to allow for an 11-bed transitional home. So spot zoning, site-specific amendment, it means the exact same thing. Now, currently, the only thing we can go on is our existing zoning and development bylaw. So the questions around, how we're going to proceed going forward with our new zoning and development bylaw is a very important question, and that's where I would encourage everybody to get out when we start having these public information sessions so that the public can dictate how we go forward. But for today, and in today's time, we're dealing with our existing zoning and development bylaw, and that is a site-specific exemption. So I think then we could probably turn it over to the applicant to address some of the residents' questions. And then from there, I think we could ask our planning staff also to elaborate on that. And so we'll start with Jason and his team to address some of those questions from the applicant or from the resident.
So Jason, or just before we go there, Laurel, 35 Weymouth Street, is that in a DMUN? So did we do site-specific for that? Okay, go ahead.
Maybe I'll just step in. That's not transitional housing. That's permanent housing for
Thank you.
individuals.
Thank you.
And just
Yeah.
further to that point,
Yeah.
the other project that she referenced on Richmond Street is also permanent housing, so it is not transitional housing.
And what was that address, Jason, on
230 Richmond Street,
231?
230.
Yeah, right in the corner of Hensley and Richmond?
230 Richmond is the property that is mentioned. 231 Richmond is a property that's currently under construction.
Yeah, okay, hold on. Go ahead there.
I think the point of clarification would be that both of those buildings, and correct me if I'm mistaken, both have staff in each of those buildings, is that correct?
Yes.
There is staff at Weymouth Street. Richmond Street's a little bit different, but there are staff that would be there for the majority of the time. Yeah.
So I think what the resident was referring to is that long-term permanent housing doesn't include commercial or staffing in a building. So I think that's what Andrew is referring to, that doesn't actually, that's an us problem, not a you problem. Doesn't actually meet the current zoning because having staff in there is not included in an apartment building, if I recall. I think that's what Andrew's referring to, but that, like I say, that's an us problem, not a you problem. Okay, thanks.
Staff, you're good with that? Yeah, okay. Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Beck, and I'd like to get Councillor McAleer in there. He's been in the waiting line. Can I just put him up front there? Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, no, thank you for the presentation. Just curious to understand, you mentioned, I guess, Jason, for province, be staffed 24 hours, and then you kind of touched on the security piece. And I'm just wondering, this may be more a question for planning, if, depending on where this application goes, if it's either going to be approved, I guess, or denied, if it's approved on the security piece, is it possible to have security tied into the operation of what goes on at that property? Just kind of a second question in general, as Councillor McTaggart referred to, what are the benchmarks of getting into that facility? And then I wonder if then you are in the facility, are there behavior kind of qualifications that if you don't meet, or guardrails that can kind of put you out of the facility as it relates to behaviors because of the population you're dealing with?
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I just quickly, one of the things that Ashley mentioned is ensuring that the clients or participants are engaged with the nonprofit group. So that's critical. So they have to be engaged with getting connected to services and case management services. If there are behavioral issues, yes, there will likely be situations where the individual will need to leave the facility because of behavior.
Deputy?
Sure, and just to address Councillor McAleer's question in terms of security being tied in, when somebody applies for a site-specific exemption, a development agreement can come into play, and that certainly is something that can be discussed between the applicant and the planning staff, should that be what planning board and council wants to proceed with. So just to clarify that yes, that can be, a development agreement can be tied in to a site-specific exemption.
Yes, McTaggart, and then Councillor Beck.
Thank you. Jason, just further to some of the discussion here, do we have any existing transitional housing in Charlottetown right now? And if so, where's that location and how well has that worked? Is it servicing a lot of the same clientele that you would expect this particular location to service as well? Or is it operating kind of under a different model of transition?
Yes, so one specific project is on Weymouth Street where the Salvation Army operates the New Roots Transitional Housing. It's for male identifying clients. This project would be somewhat similar to that. It's a low barrier transitional housing complex. So that would be a somewhat of an example of how it would operate. This RFP that we would be issuing, the thought is that we would open it up to not just a specific gender, so it could be for male identifying or female identifying clients, or potentially a mixed population, depending on the nonprofits that submit proposals. But so ultimately, we do have that one property, New Roots Transitional Housing, that operates a similar type of model, and it does. It is a very successful model. We have 18 units or 18 beds at that space. But again, it is for male identifying clients, so we're hoping that this project could allow for an opportunity for female identifying clients to find a more suitable spot as well.
That's the old Smith Lodge. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Tarrant, second one?
So, ultimately, Jason, there's obviously, there might be some apprehension regarding a nonprofit running the organization. We've seen in the past what that can present. And I think a lot of the discussions we've had over the last number of years on this topic has been in relation to the accountability and oversight by the provincial government and through your department and/or health. What guardrails are going to be put in place to support this application in that way, like oversight guardrails, the buck stops with you guys type of thing on how this operates or how it's actually not operating the way in which it should, and becomes very problematic possibly for the neighborhood and the residents. That's a lot of people in a particular area that could become problematic. Again, hopefully not. Hopefully does its intended purpose and works very well and successful, but I think there's apprehension that may not. So I'm looking at it from the accountability perspective.
Yes, fair enough. Ultimately, we have a division within the PEI Housing Corporation that manages all of our nonprofit contracts, and they would be responsible for managing this contract, no different than any other. We would be looking as part of the RFP process to develop a comprehensive funding agreement for that nonprofit group that would include requirements such as a safety plan, incident reporting, all kinds of data being reported to us to ensure that things are operating smoothly. In addition to that, generally speaking, our staff have day-to-day contact with most of our nonprofit groups to ensure that everything's operating smoothly, and if there's any support that would be needed from the provincial side of things. So understand the kind of the concern, but we do have a very strong staff in our outreach services team that would be managing the contract and managing the day-to-day relationship.
Okay. Councilor Beck?
Yeah, I just want to get some clarification on some things. I kind of want to tie in, go back into what, it's a little bit of what Councilor Matart was saying and a little bit what Andrea was saying too. So down on Weymouth Street, is New Roots the one on the corner of Sydney and Weymouth?
No.
That used to be Smith Lodge, or is it the new unit? Just,
Yeah, go ahead.
is it the new unit? There's the one in the corner of Sydney and Richmond, or Weymouth, and then there's the new one that was just built. Correct?
Corner of Dorchester.
Which is New
It's
Roots?
right beside the new one. So if you're looking at the new building, it's the one on the right. Like that's New Roots.
Which is on the corner of Dorchester.
Okay, and didn't that used to be Smith Lodge?
Yes, that's what it was.
That was Smith Lodge, okay. So that's 18-unit transitional. The new unit has 11 in it, I think? But they're permanent, no, the one on Weymouth Street, the one that was
Yeah,
just
that's
recently built.
13.
13, I
permanent
knew it was an odd number,
housing
okay.
units, yeah.
And that's for permanent housing, that's not transitional. 231 is permanent housing, Richmond Street, 231 Richmond Street, right?
230.
Okay, what's 230? Because I always think of 231, the one that he was referencing.
I think it's the former, correct me if I'm wrong, the McMillan Lodge might have been
No,
the,
that's across the street. 231 is the one you are renovating right now.
231 is under construction, so that's a brand-new building.
And that's for what?
230 is the old McMillan Lodge,
Right.
which was converted into residential units, 8 units there,
Okay, and is that permanent or transitional?
permanent.
Permanent. So the ones on Richmond Street are permanent.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just trying to find it. Is 231 going to be permanent?
231 is social housing, so it's family housing units.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
same thing. It's going to be permanent housing.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, what other units are in the downtown area?
There are a number of units that Canadian Mental Health Association operates. a
No,
lot
that
of
you guys operate.
So we would be a funder of those
transitional or
organizations.
Okay.
So I guess to clarify your question, you're looking for ones that we own and operate, or we own and fund?
Well, could be either one. Are we
Yeah,
talking
like
about?
there's a few. We have like those three that we mentioned, Weymouth Street, Richmond Street, New Roots Transitional Housing, and then this project.
Yep.
And then we also have some other funding arrangements we have with other nonprofit groups, like I mentioned, CMHA. They have a number of.
Fitzroy one?
Fitzroy, yep, 28 units there. That's all I can think of off the top of my head, but that would be an example.
Okay, and are we looking at any in the queue?
I think part of our provincial housing strategy has a focus on supportive housing and transitional housing being a component of that. This is one project that we're hoping to be utilized as transitional housing to help individuals that are potentially in the shelter system that need a better or more suitable home. So that's kind of the primary purpose. But we do recognize, there will be additional projects in the future likely that could be targeted to more permanent supportive housing. But as of right now, this is what we have on the table.
And do you distinguish, is there any difference between the terminology of transitional and supportive?
Yeah, I consider transitional a component of supportive housing, so it's like a supportive short-term supports. There
12 to
is
18
supportive housing that is permanent, so long-term, potentially long-term supports. So that's kind of the differential that we use.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're sticking with 147. I think that's what Sharon is here for, 147 Hillsboro Street. Is there any, Deputy, do you want to just move in there? And
Yeah,
then Councillor Twill.
thank you. And question actually for Jason, and maybe even just to tie back to what Councillor McAleer talked about in terms of security. One of the things that could be looked at as we go further down into the application process would be encouraging the applicant to sponsor one of the e-watch cameras through the city police. And so that certainly could be an option for the development agreement. And then just to tie back to, I realized that one of the questions that the resident that's online had asked was about displaced folks from the existing 6 apartments. And I don't think she got that question answered. If folks that had been currently living there have now been displaced and where they might be going, or, so I think it was a reference to the housing stock. So if somebody could speak to that, if you can, that would be great. Thank you.
Yep, for sure. This building has been vacant for 2 to 3 years. It's in need of major repairs. So there is nobody in the building currently. So this is a time that we would, it's a time that we would expect that this would be a good opportunity to do this renovation if we are able to get this site-specific exemption.
Councillor Twill, I've just noticed, Sharon, Doug, did Doug want to say something? Are you speaking for Doug? Yes? Yeah, thank you.
His hearing is gone.
I know.
Again, this project will,
Just bring the mic down.
again, while this project is admirable, you still haven't addressed my concerns about exterior security. You have your indoor projects covered. My concern is the exterior project, the security of it for my property and the neighborhood. And another thing, we live right next door to a care facility. I have 34 neighbors. A lot have issues, and they're still my neighbors. But it's privately run. I know the owners. I pop over when I have an issue. We have a face-to-face conversation. We may not agree, but we have a face-to-face. I guess my hesitation, again, a major one, this is a government project. The track record, who do I have? I need a name, I need a phone number, and I need someone available to be accountable to me for my queries, for my guests, 24/7, not, well, I'll get to it on Monday, or it's not my department. You understand where I'm coming from?
Certainly, I absolutely recognize the concern. We would be happy to provide contact information to both our department through our outreach services team, as well as once we have if we are able to move forward, once we have the nonprofit established, that would be certainly a requirement through our contract. In terms of like the exterior security, happy to kind of discuss those options. Absolutely looking at exterior cameras that would be monitored 24/7 by the staff inside the building. So that's one potential option. Like I mentioned before, we are considering the idea of security. Honestly, we do have security at some of our other sites. Sometimes it's not needed. We have staff at this particular project that would be there 24/7, so they would be able to deal with any potential problem that pops up, and then also be able to communicate with the neighbors and the community members as needed.
Yeah, as was suggested by the deputy, there is an e-camera system with the Charlottetown Police Force, Charlottetown Police Service. Is that all right, Sharon?
No, but it's going to have to settle for now.
Councillor Twill.
Yeah. So when you talk about transitional housing or housing that's a similar nature, how many do we have in Charlottetown currently?
Already asked.
What?
That was already asked.
Yeah, no.
Councillor Beck, do you want to repeat it?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I guess we talked about some other different models, not necessarily transitional housing. So in terms of transitional housing that we participate in, we have a funding agreement and a property that we own on Weymouth Street that is operated by the Salvation Army. That's referred to as New Roots Transitional Housing. We also have a few properties in the Charlottetown area that operate as more permanent supportive housing, which is different than transitional. And we have some different funding agreements that we have with other organizations. And previously I referenced Canadian Mental Health Association that has some supportive housing, which again is permanent supportive housing, not necessarily transitional.
Okay. As you pointed out, Jason, that if you get the approval from City Council, then your next step would be to tender out to an NGO, right? So here's the question that a lot of people are asking. Why isn't the province of Prince Edward Island running these facilities? Like, why is it constantly being tendered out to an NGO? And that question is asked time in and time again.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, in many other provinces, the provincial government is generally never the operator of these types of facilities. On PEI, we have operated some in the past. We have Park Street Emergency Shelter as a prime example. Our view on it is
you're going to tender that out. You're going to tender that out to an NGO. You're not the one at the end of Park Street?
So our view
Councillor
on
Twill,
this particular...
That stayed at 149, like...
No, Mr. Mayor.
I know, but Doug
it's
and
all
Sharon
relevant.
neighbors that want to hear...
I waited.
I know.
No, I waited
We're going
till
to be
everybody
going-
asks their questions.
Yeah.
And these are serious
going
questions.
around to all the
You
different
know what,
facilities.
Mr.
No,
Mayor,
keep
I knew
going,
you were going to
keep
do
going.
this.
No,
I knew
keep going.
exactly what you were going to do.
Keep going.
No. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so lost my train of thought there. What were we talking about?
Park Street Emergency Shelter that's been...
Yeah, I think so. Our view on this particular project is that the nonprofit sector on PEI typically has a better track record working with different vulnerable islanders across the island. They have, there is that perception of trust in government. So that is something that we're aware of, and we feel that a nonprofit organization group would be better positioned to operate this facility. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, with close interaction with our staff on the day-to-day basis, there's criteria within all our funding agreements with nonprofits around reporting and incident reporting and safety plans and all of those types of things. So we're, at this point, relatively comfortable that this would be the best path forward.
Okay, next question, Jason. When you look at the province of Prince Edward Island and the types of facilities that you're looking to renovate, build new ones, I mean, we're seeing both, as was highlighted here tonight. Is Charlottetown, the city of Charlottetown, is this where the majority of these facilities are being built and constructed, renovated, whatever the case may be, for the entire island? Like, are they spread out equally and fairly right across PEI? Why are they all the perception is, tell me if I'm wrong, but the perception is it's all concentrated here in Charlottetown. Why isn't it done right across the board, equally and fairly?
Yeah, so we do have a focus on island-wide. It's not just the Charlottetown area, but I don't think it's anybody's surprise as the largest city on the island that this is the city that has the most need in terms of this type of supportive housing. We have social housing projects that are certainly outside of this that we've done in all different kinds of, we've gone from Surrey to Alberton, Summerside, Charlottetown. We've done social housing expansions in a lot of different communities over the last 3 or 4 years, which has helped significantly in terms of helping individuals that are on our social housing registry. This project is an opportunity to provide more better suitable housing for individuals that potentially are living in shelter currently that are in need of a better home. So your point's not wrong. There is lots of activity in terms of supportive housing or transitional housing in the Charlottetown area, primarily because that's where the need is.
Okay. Another question that keeps coming up, Jason, and I just look at some of the activities over the last 3 or 4 years. How many people, for example, are coming in from off island, accessing these services?
Again, Councillor Tweedle, we're dealing with the application.
Oh, I know, Mr. Mayor, I know, but these are very important questions.
On Ken Street. I know.
I know,
Yeah.
and you know what, I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask the questions.
Yeah, well,
Okay?
we want to
I
stay
can
focused.
Just clarify.
I am focused, believe me.
149
Yeah.
Hillsboro Street.
Individuals that would access this would be permanent residents of PEI.
PEI, so it's not
So we have
people that are coming in from off island?
we have policies in place that we refer to as a transient policy. So individuals, we would work with those individuals. They'd have an opportunity. Certainly, this is an example at a shelter, for example, but we would have an opportunity to allow the individuals to stay at the shelter for a maximum number of nights, and then they would be helped to go back to their home province. This is
Okay.
different. The individuals would have to be individuals that are permanent residents of PEI.
Okay. You talked about majority of them have to be in the downtown because of the services that are provided, right? You said that in your presentation earlier. What type of services are you referring to? That these facilities have to be in the older part of the city, whether it's in the downtown or north of Houston?
Yeah, so I'll pass this along to Ashley
Okay.
to mention some
Coffee
specifics. But this project, what I mentioned earlier is it's more beneficial if these facilities are in close proximity to the services. That's kind of what I mentioned, and I'll let Ashley kind of speak to
Okay,
the specifics
great.
on the.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as if you drive by CMHA, the Fitzroy Center is a block away. A lot of individuals with mental health really benefit from going to the Fitzroy Center. Salvation Army, it's got a food bank, it's got a friendship room, it's got religious services, soup kitchen. Their church on the corner runs AA meetings, NA meetings all day long. Talbot House is right beside it. The library, there's all kinds of different services that are downtown for individuals to access, and all of them are, within walking distance.
Okay, thank you. Again, it creates a heavy concentration in the downtown, right? One of the facilities we haven't mentioned here tonight, and it's all interrelated, is Bedford McDonald House as well. Do you fund that too?
No.
So we would have a funding agreement with the Salvation Army to operate the.
Like the city
Bedford
runs it.
McDonald House. We don't own the building, no.
But the city
Okay.
contributes to it
One
also.
of the issues that come up here from the residents that are going to be impacted, she made it quite clear. She talked about property value. How do you address, they said they've been here now at this particular location, 4 decades or more. What do you say to her concern about property value? I see some of these facilities where properties beside them, the for sale signs are there, and can't sell them. So how do you address the concern about, which is a real concern, about property value?
I think it's a fair question. Obviously not an expert in property valuations. I don't necessarily, I'm not that I don't agree. I just don't know if there would be a decrease in the property value. The individuals that are facing homelessness are around the community anyway.
I know.
Right? So by providing a housing facility, transitional housing facility for individuals that are in that community anyway, is our plan here. I don't necessarily, the issue of homelessness and addiction and mental health issue is obviously an issue for the island and Charlottetown for sure. So ultimately, our goal here is to try to assist those individuals to find a more suitable house as opposed to having to utilize the shelter system in a hopes that the individuals would lead themselves to different services, deal with their issues, and be able to find more independent housing.
Jason, you talked about 24-hour service.
Can you just wrap it up, Councilor Twillie, because Julie McCabe has a question too. Okay, you can go in 10 minutes.
You talked about 24-hour service, Jason. Does that mean the people that are going to live there, they can stay there 24 hours? They don't have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and they're pushed out onto the street, like in some of these shelters?
This is a 24/7 space that they live in.
Right.
To Ashley's point a couple times was that these people have to be engaged in services with the nonprofit group.
Right.
So they have to make sure that they are showing that they're taking, availing themselves of the different services and whatever is offered through the nonprofit group and connecting themselves to different pathways to try to approve
So
themselves.
does that mean, Jason, they have to be out at 8 o'clock in the morning?
No.
No.
Because some of them.
Yeah, this is a transitional housing project. It's not a shelter. So the idea would be that this is their home for a period of time. And I mentioned earlier, between 12 and 18 months is generally the timeline that we would hope that they would be in a position to move on to more independent housing.
Okay, Councilor Twillie, I just want to get moving here. Councilor McCabe, please go.
Yep, just listening to everyone, I know there's hesitation because of, what's been experienced in our city, but we know it's an ongoing problem. We also heard during that time that this was the next step. We needed to find some permanent housing. This is for 11 people. That's not even scratching the surface of what needs to happen for this department. You have a lot of work ahead of you because there's a whole bunch more than 11 people that need support and need to be reintegrated healthily into our community. And with supported living and rules and expectations, and I hope your criteria is good, because otherwise it won't be successful, and that'll be a you problem at that point. But these people need to have somewhere. Housing is the basic need, where we need to wake up in the morning and you need to have a place to come home to at night. They're survival mode. Like, we have to look at the vulnerable people we're dealing with, and if we don't provide opportunity for them to have that and to grow, then they're just in the street, and problems will continue. So 11, great start, but there's a whole bunch more that need to happen, because I'd love to see the data from Park Street now, how many people are in and out. And I don't know, if I had to pack up my bags every morning at 8 o'clock and find a place to keep warm till I got to go back in that night at 8, I wouldn't feel very safe and secure. So anyway, I know it's scary. There's a lot of work. You got to be consistent with it, because that will be the only way some things like this continue to be successful, and these people deserve safe living.
And your new tenants, would they have all of them have vehicles? No. No. Yeah, I know staff does, but I'm just asking with the tenants. Okay. Good. Doug? You want to take the mic down, Doug? You sure? Just tilt it up there a little bit, Doug, so we can hear you.
I understand the merit of this. We've lived for 40 years downtown, and if you check the facilities that are in our area, we've been very open to them. But my question is, when you purchased this property with this in mind, were you aware that there was a bed and breakfast tourism operation right beside it? That's my question. And if you weren't aware, do you understand the ramifications to my wife and I in terms of our retirement? She still is operating, but we don't have pensions. Our retirement fund is at home. And Mitch mentioned about how difficult it is to sell. And I can vouch for that in terms of over by the Bedford House. So anyway, were you aware that there was a bed and breakfast beside the site?
Jason?
Yeah, I think, so we acquired the property in 2023 or 24. It wasn't specifically necessarily planned for transitional housing at that time, to be honest. I was not aware that there was a bed and breakfast as a neighbor, but over time, as we looked at the property and recognized that there was certainly a need in the community, and another factor was the major repairs that were going to be required to the facility or to the building. That's kind of when we chose the path of transitional housing. So I guess to answer your question, certainly was not aware of that at the time, but also at the time it was a multi-unit apartment building essentially that was in need of some major repairs that we didn't look at it specifically for transitional housing when we acquired it.
So two things. One, have you put a transitional house beside any tourism operation on this island? And I would also suggest 40 years ago, if there's a transitional house beside the property, we wouldn't have located there, the zoning and everything. And then second off, as an alternative, I don't mean to tell you what to do, but take the 6 units and use them for subsidized housing. You need housing everywhere, use it for that purpose. And that makes quite a difference. Like, we don't expect to have neighbors that have the incomes that people have in West Royalty, but we're quite comfortable. Turn it into a subsidized, 6 subsidized units. And that would eliminate, our real issue is the folks, they're in your unit and you have security, but it's during the day, and you can see it down at Park Street, whatever. They're not going to sit in their room all day long, sort of thing. So anyway, turn it into subsidized apartments and we'd all be happy. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. I, just quickly, I guess, so, in terms of individuals hanging outside all day at that site, when I look at our new routes, transitional housing that's not that far away, we don't generally have that issue. People are not loitering around the outside of the buildings all day. As we mentioned earlier, and Ashley mentioned, the thought or the idea is that individuals are working to get engaged and get included in case management services that would allow them to take advantage of different types of supports. On New Routes Transitional Housing, which is really the only transitional housing facility we have in the Charlottetown area, it is actually located right beside a tourism operation with Sydney Inn and Boutique, I believe is referred to. So we have had limited challenges, I would say, with that operator. And like I mentioned earlier, absolutely more than happy to be providing information very regularly, providing contact information to yourself as well, to be able to reach out to if there's any issues. Once we have a nonprofit operator, if we're able to proceed, we would be more than happy to sit down with you and your wife to talk about what type of contact information can be shared between each and be in regular communication to make sure that there is an opportunity to mitigate and prevent any issues.
Okay. Councillor Drawn, you still there? Councillor Drawn? He's probably checked out. Councillor Twill?
Jason, Ashley, and I'm sorry I don't know your name. I want to thank you for being here tonight. You know, the concerns are real. The concerns are real. I know you got a tough job. We have a tough job. It's not easy. And, you know, what I personally experienced, my residents experienced on Eustis Street when the outreach center was there, it's been a tough pill to swallow. Ever since that happened, it's been an unmitigated disaster. And that's why, you know, things keep coming back. People are asking questions. We're just conveying what we hear and what we're trying to bring forward. You know, we're not here, it's not a shooting gallery, but if I wasn't honest with you, I wouldn't be doing my job. So thank you for being here.
Appreciate the opportunity. Just maybe one thing, like I've heard this many times over the last couple of years with some of our other projects, and I recognize the concern in the community for sure. And we're absolutely trying and willing to do our best to make sure that the community is okay with our potential project here. It's a little bit obviously different than the outreach center, different than the shelter, where we would try to assist individuals that typically probably attend the shelter and go to the shelter regularly, that we would have an opportunity to find them a more suitable location to live, and then eventually allow them to move forward in their lives and live more independently.
And Jason, if I look online, emergency shelters, immediate need, there's some in Summerside, short-term, which is your transitional housing. You have one in Montague, 11 units. Long-term supportive housing, you have across the island, and then you have subsidized and social housing. So those levels of housing, they're not just all in Charlottetown, they're spread across the island, as you said. Doug, Sharon, thank you very much for coming out. Thank you. Councillor Drawn, you're all right? Okay, and Andrea, we're gonna, okay. Thank you very much. We just need a resolution to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you.